The Boston Bruins pulled off another trade last night after their loss to the Carolina Hurricanes, but is that just a prelude to bigger things?
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Friday, March 7th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today is trade deadline day in the NHL, otherwise known as NHL Christmas Day. And we are going to break down what the Bruins have done already and what they could do yet before 3 p.m. here on Friday afternoon, and also touch on last night's crushing, emblematic loss for the Boston Bruins against the Carolina Hurricanes. That was just Boston's season. Before we get into that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, now on Blue Sky as well, Instagram, X, and you can also follow my hockey tweets, dad jokes, at Ian C. McLaren. All right, let's get into the news from last night. Following the game against the Carolina Hurricanes, it was announced that the Bruins reuniting with Jacob Lauko and also acquiring Marat Khusnutdinov from the Minnesota Wild in exchange for Justin Brazeau. They're also getting a 6th-round pick, which was originally Boston's, in that deal. 3 pieces for Justin Brazeau, who's an unrestricted free agent, and that's a nice piece of business here for general manager Don Sweeney. Brazeau, of course, was an unsigned or undrafted free agent, and the Bruins signed him in 2024 as a bit of a late bloomer. He was a guy that succeeded in the junior ranks, but was not able to crack the NHL until the Boston Bruins took a chance on him. He appeared in 76 games for this team over the past 2 seasons, 15 goals, 12 assists for 27 points. He's a big body, of course, and the 6'6", 227-pound forward will be called upon to add some depth scoring for the Minnesota Wild as they prepare for a playoff run. We all know Jacob Lauko, of course. He was originally selected by the Bruins in the 3rd round of the 2018 NHL entry draft. He had 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points in 38 games with Minnesota this season. And in 121 career NHL games with the Wild and the Bruins, he's got 9 goals, 14 assists. But he brings so much more to the table. Some energy, some physicality, and also just tremendous vibes from Jacob Lauko. He's well loved in the locker room, particularly by goaltender Jeremy Swayman, who lost his other best friend this past offseason when Linus Ullmark was traded to the Ottawa Senators. So hopefully Lauko's return. He's already popped out the Abe Simpson gif, which we all remember from past times when he was kind of up and down between Providence. And we all know him, love him for his appreciation for grapes, for his Lord of the Rings fandom. And it's great to have Lauko back in the mix. And he's a restricted free agent, meaning the Bruins have some control and re-sign him moving forward. Now, the most intriguing piece here is Khusnutdinov, who is a 2nd-round pick from the 2020 draft and who brings a ton of upside to the table for the Boston Bruins. He's a very intriguing guy who perhaps has yet to really find his groove here at the NHL level. I always like to look at dauber prospects as kind of a place for prospect insight. They call him a high energy playmaker who makes things happen whenever he steps on the ice. A responsible two-way center who plays a strong 200-foot game, slightly undersized but doesn't shy away from action, good leadership abilities. If that doesn't scream Boston Bruin, I don't know what does. Back in 2023, they wrote he's one of the Wild's most promising prospects. He had an incredible season for SKA St. Petersburg in 2022-23, where he had 11 goals, 41 points in 63 games before making the jump to the Wild. Last season, he had 6 goals, 20 points in 49 games for Sochi. This season, his first full season with the Minnesota Wild, he's got only 2 goals, 7 points in 57 games, but that's largely been in a defensive role. And there's some untapped offensive potential there to be sure. On Dauber, they also said that when he jumps to the NHL, he could be an instant top 6 forward. So you look at this player as a center who can play a full 200-foot game, defensively responsible, has some offensive upside. That's a real nice add for Don Sweeney and the Boston Bruins, a guy with some real potential here to be a middle 6 center for this club. And I'm really excited about this addition for sure. He was drafted 37th overall in 2020. He is, 22, going to be 23 here. Just only about 70 games under his belt at the NHL level. It really takes about 200 at the NHL level for a guy to hit his breakout threshold. And so still a lot of room for this guy to grow. So to get Lauko, who we already know and love, to get this center prospect who plays a 200-foot game, who has offensive upside. Elite Prospect said he had one of the best motors in his draft class. He'll relentlessly backcheck as play transitions towards the defensive zone, and his ability to track developing plays while he's skating at full speed really impresses. He is also proficient at carrying the puck into the offensive zone. Small, two-way center, great skater, uses his quickness to win pucks all over the ice, showing skills and smarts once he gets possession. That's what you want from a player right now in these kind of trades. If you're looking to retool, which the Bruins are, you want to grab these kind of players who are NHL ready but have some upside, much younger than Brazeau, who's already 27. Both Lauko and the other forward are much younger than Brazeau. So you're getting some age there. You're getting restricted free agents who the Bruins can re-sign, whereas Brazeau could have walked for nothing in the open market. Getting Lauko, getting Khusnutdinov for Brazeau is a nice piece of work, plus the 6th round pick, which, it's a late round pick, but you never know what that could become. A nice, tidy piece of business here for Don Sweeney. And we'll touch on that more in the bonus episode that's coming, as we will recap the whole trade deadline work as a whole. But this late night trade for the Boston Bruins was a pretty nice piece of business. And I'm excited to see what Lauko can bring back to the table and what Khusnutdinov can bring as a guy who has really yet to find his groove at the NHL level, or maybe yet to be used properly. Two-way center with some real upside here. And, Justin Brazeau was a nice find for the Boston Bruins. He really did well to establish himself as an NHLer, a guy that teams are willing to give up 3 assets for. But this is also a nice piece of business for Don Sweeney, who may not yet be done here, as there's rampant speculation that the captain may indeed be moved before 3 p.m. We'll discuss that here as the podcast continues. When basketball games tip off, the action is just getting started, and you want to get in on every fast break with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I miss my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your day. Please do subscribe on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Follow along on Instagram for all the very latest on the black and gold. Now, the Trent Frederic and Justin Brazeau trades were kind of no-brainers for the Boston Bruins, both pending unrestricted free agents. And let's be honest, Don Sweeney's done some pretty nice work so far. The big fish on the trade market right now is Mikko Rantanen. There was wild speculation last night that he was about to be traded to the Dallas Stars. That was dependent on a contract extension agreement, which has not materialized as of yet. Now, some teams are waiting to see what happens with Rantanen before maybe making a serious pitch for Brad Marchand. On Thursday that he was hearing some pretty loud noise about the Boston Bruins captain. He said Boston will likely be trading Marchand to a team in the Western Conference before Friday's deadline. Now, a caveat here, it was pretty much just one guy who was saying this so far, and his sources were clearly outside the Bruins organization because he was saying teams who are calling weren't hearing a no. So that's a source outside. But here's what Johnston said on TSN last night. Marchand's been quite clear when he's spoken to reporters that he wants to remain in Boston. The Bruins have wanted to keep him. But what I, Chris Johnston, can tell you at this point in time, there's no confirmation he's going to be traded, but the feeling league-wide is that he very much is likely to be moved by the Bruins at some point to the West. He added, we'll see where this goes because there have been some conversations on a new contract as recently as the last couple of days. There's always the pivot point when we get this close. You don't want to box yourself totally in, but it does feel like it's moving towards a Marchand deal, which would be a surprise given that he's a lifelong Bruin and wants to stay there. End quote. So we're about, as I record here, 5.5 hours away. And there's a real sense that this could happen. Now, I talked about on the podcast last week how it makes sense for the Boston Bruins. You look at what the Colorado Avalanche gave up to get Brock Nelson from the New York Islanders, and you can see why this could be tantalizing for the Boston Bruins. The Colorado Avalanche were willing to give up arguably their top prospect in Callum Ritchie, a first-round pick in 2026 or 2027, a conditional third-round pick in 2028, as well as defenseman Oliver Shillington, who has flipped to the Anaheim Ducks for future considerations. Nelson, he's younger than Marchand, 3 years younger. He was a lifelong New York Islander, but he will fill a need for this team, for the Avalanche, and they were willing to pay. You look at the first-round picks that the Tampa Bay Lightning gave up to get Yanni Gourde, Oliver Bjorkstrand. The Bruins have an opportunity here to get a legitimate high-end prospect or NHL-ready roster player, as well as some picks in exchange for the captain. Pierre LeBrun most recently saying, we'll see where it goes on Marchand. It can still go either way, either re-signing or traded. Colorado, not likely a landing spot based on what they gave up for Brock Nelson. Maybe the Dallas Stars swing in and make a pitch if the Rantanen deal falls through. It appears as though they were willing to give up picks and perhaps Maverick Bourque or like Logan Stankoven in a deal, which would be instantly give the Bruins the top prospect in the organization or guys that could step into the lineup right now. I was looking last night, maybe the Winnipeg Jets. They've got their first round here in 2025. They've got a cap space. They have a bunch of prospects, Brandon Yeager, Colby Barlow, to name a few, that would be tantalizing for the Boston Bruins. I'm not advocating for a Marchand trade. I would like to see him finish his career in black and gold. But at the same time, if a team is going to come in with a top NHL prospect or an NHL-ready prospect who can make an impact instantly, as well as a package of picks, it's going to be really hard to turn that down, with the reality that if the two sides can't come to a contract agreement, Brad Marchand could be wooed on the open market this summer and leave for nothing. DeBrusk did last summer. And you know what this team's biggest problem has been this season is lack of secondary scoring and losing DeBrusk, Danton Heinen, even James Van Riemsdyk as free agents last summer and not replacing those guys. Yes, Brad Marchand, lifelong Bruin. He's kind of the last vestige of that core that won in 2011, went to the final 2013, even the team from 2019. There's still a few guys, obviously, from that club, but we're moving into a new wave here. You don't want to see the captain traded, but as I've said over and over again, it has happened to 4 of the last 5 captains on this team where they did not finish their careers as Bruins. Ray Bourque was traded 25 years ago yesterday. Jason Allison was traded. That was a short tenure. Joe Thornton, who was seen as the next big thing for the Bruins, was traded. Zdeno Chara was told, thank you for your service. We no longer want to employ you, basically. We want to move in a different direction. Patrice Bergeron was the only Bruins captain out of the last 5 that ended on his own terms. The Bruins would like to go that route with Marchand, I'm sure, taking it kind of year by year or maybe max 2 years on a new contract. He's probably looking at 3 years to finish his career here. We'll see what happens. I would be surprised, and I know a large portion of the fan base will be perhaps enraged if the Bruins trade Brad Marchand. I'm not a huge fan of it. I would like to see him finish his career in black and gold, but it's definitely a possibility, and the Bruins have an opportunity here to really cash in. There's a suggestion that maybe he recircles and re-signs, which would be the best case scenario. You get a huge package for him and then bring him back next season. It's kind of difficult to gauge that because you never know what's going to happen or what feelings come up if you trade a guy. But The Stars could pivot if Rantanen doesn't sign, and the Jets are out there. Vegas is interested reportedly, but they don't really have a ton to work with. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens to Marchand, as well as some other guys. Brandon Carlo, we've talked about. Morgan Geekie, Charlie Coyle, among others. By the time you listen to this, something changed on YouTube for all the very latest on this team. Now, the Bruins did play last night and lost to the Carolina Hurricanes in somewhat crushing fashion. We'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. Now, believe it or not, through all of this trade and sell talk, the Bruins still technically alive in the playoff race, but their chances took another big hit last night with Nikita Zadorov snapping his stick on a pretty routine pass attempt. Just happened to happen right in the slot. Seth Jarvis gobbling up the puck for the Carolina Hurricanes and ending it in the final minute. The Bruins did not even get a point out of this one. They are now 3 points out of a wild card spot, and the second wild card is currently held by the Ottawa Senators, who have 3 games in hand. The Bruins are actually now at an even 500 in point percentage, which is 4th worst in the conference, and their goal differential remains 2nd worst. So losing 3 in a row, 2-6-2 over their past 10. The writing has been on the wall for a while now that this team is not going to make the playoffs, and it's a real opportunity here to regroup, retool, and hope for a quick turnaround next season where Jeremy Swayman, who could be reinvigorated by having one of his buddies back in Jacob Lauko, you have him back on his game. You could have hopefully Nikita Zadorov and Elias Lindholm playing more to their contracts. Just a lot of factors at play that could help this team next season. The Bruins maybe deserved a better fate in this one. They outshot Carolina 34-23, dominant in the faceoff circle. They killed all 3 of Carolina's power plays. They failed to score on their own extra man advantages. A much better effort than the 8-2 loss back on Halloween. Joonas Korpisalo, pretty solid in net, probably deserved a better fate as well. We don't need to go too deep into the stats and signals from this one. Morgan Geekie did score the 2 goals for the Bruins. David Pastrnak got a point to keep his hot streak going. Maybe that kind of raised Geekie's trade value. There's a real argument to be made whether or not he should be re-signed, retained, because he clearly fits in here, or they sell high on his career season to date. A lot of moving parts here for the Boston Bruins. A lot of speculation as to whether, again, Marchand will be traded. Geekie, Coyle, who knows? But the Bruins last night really sealed their fate as not a team to be taken seriously as a playoff team. And if you've been watching this team all year long, you would have seen that. Like, this team, as close as they have been to playoff contention, they've been a bottom team all season long in terms of offense. Their defense has been porous. Special teams have been awful. There was a bit of a bump there once the coaching change was made, but I mean, let's be honest. This is not a team that, even if they squeaked into the playoffs, it was going to be pretty bleak if they got in there. The Bruins now have the 9th best odds of winning the draft lottery. 5% chance of winning the draft lottery. They're 2-6-2 over their last 10. They've won. They've lost 3 in a row. They're at even 500. There are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams in the NHL who have worse point percentages. And when you look at the standings, they have a ton of they have to pass in order to make the playoffs, including the New York Islanders, who have a better point percentage now, the Montreal Canadiens, the Detroit Red Wings, New York Rangers, Columbus Blue Jackets, Ottawa Senators. These are all teams that have much better chances of making the playoffs. And the Bruins are definitely in sell mode here as we approach this afternoon's 3 p.m. trade deadline. If they had picked up 2 points last night, maybe you think, well, yeah, great effort against a pretty good team in the Carolina Hurricanes. Maybe, I heard even on Unobstructed Views last night, Tuukka Rask, Patrice Bergeron, Andrew Raycroft talking before the game how the mindset in the locker room still will be, you put 5 or 6 games here together, you could get right back in the playoff hunt. Your mindset is on the games right now. The players are not thinking tank, but the lineup that's on the ice right now, let's be honest, is not getting the job done. And as good as David Pastrnak has been here, especially in 2025, as nice of a season as we're getting out of Morgan Geekie, Mason Lohrei, his defensive deficiencies hopefully dwindling, and his offensive game is thriving right now. You like to see him taking a next step. You like to see Matt Poitras getting back into the lineup. Pavel Zacha. That one line is basically all the Bruins have right now. So it's high time to consider all options on the trade market and see if they can get some real nice pieces from other teams who are more in it and more willing to sell for a chance at Lord Stanley's Cup. Welcome back, Jacob Lauko. Welcome to the team. Khusnutdinov. Farewell, Justin Brazeau. Thank you for your service. And let's see what happens here. I did fail to mention the Bruins signed Tyler Pitlick to a 1-year, 2-way contract, which makes him recallable now. He was just on a AHL deal. Perhaps that allows them to subtract and recall him. He has had a nice season for the Providence Bruins so far. Tied 3rd in goals, 4th in points, 2nd round pick back in 2010. So a lot of moving pieces here for the Bruins. And I will be back later here on Friday to recap what the Bruins do on a special bonus trade deadline recap episode of Locked On Boston Bruins. Check out Locked On NHL next. They'll give you all the insight you need from a league-wide perspective from our local experts. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team. Happy trade deadline day, friends. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. And we can get through this no matter what happens. Talk to you later.